dive into the depths of one of history's most captivating enigmas on tonight's episode on the lost city of Atlantis. Join us as we unravel the fascinating tale of this fabled city, first described by the Greek philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago. Tonight on Newsworthy, two words and two question marks.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Buying your first home can be overwhelming, but here are 5 tips to make the process go smoother. Number one, find a lender, me, Ed Locke, that can answer any questions you might have and help you get pre approved. There are multiple options available based on your situation. Number two, work with a real estate agent you can trust. Number three, don't rush the process. Take your time and know that the process could take some time. Number four, consider all the costs. Number five, get a home inspection and review it with your realtor. Keep these tips in mind, budget for yourself, and you'll be that much closer to making your dream of homeownership a reality. So reach out to me at 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity.
He's alive! Have you checked the children? Get out!
You have scoured the podcast world and finally found us, Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry, where we delve into all things mysterious, macabre, or out of this world, and decide if they are truly newsworthy. Two words and two question marks.
Jerry, how are you?
Mr. Steve? I am great. Yourself?
I'm okay, doing good, man. This is what our second actual week on Riverside.fm.
That it is.
So that whole process went a little smoother.
A lot smoother than the change last time, I think.
Yeah,
Ellipson.
yeah. Well, things happen, unfortunately.
Very true.
So I was outside just the other day, Monday, I think it was, before the rain. I have a big brush pile. I had a tree come down last year, and they just save a little money. They just cut it and stacked it by my fire pit as opposed to hauling it off. So I was out cleaning some of that up, and I found a four-leaf clover, Jerry.
Really?
Yeah, I'd never found one before. I was going to bring it in and put it in. What's that called when you put plastic around something? What is that called?
Putting plastic around something.
It's going to bother me now, but it didn't matter. But then I got to looking on the internet and realized I shouldn't use an iron on my four-leaf clover.
Why is that?
You shouldn't press your luck.
Oh.
Wow, straight into the dad joke
Press your
today.
luck.
That was a long way for a really bad joke. Really bad joke.
Well, I've got one for you,
Oh,
and I think mine's a little better.
okay.
I don't know. It depends on your political taste, I guess, right?
Oh boy, here we go.
Exactly. It's going to be some people cover tea, some are going to be like, no, not hardly.
They're going to dump it in the harbor.
Not quite, but almost.
Tea, harbor. Get it?
I get it. I don't know if you heard, but the other day there was a traffic jam on I-495. For
Oh,
those not familiar, I-495 is the outer beltway around Washington, D.C., and nothing was moving. And I was sitting there and I saw this guy who was going down the cars, knocked on the window and talking to him for a minute. He gets to my car and I rolled the window down and said, "What's going on?" He said, "Terrorists have kidnapped every member of Congress, and they're asking for a $100 million ransom. And they're saying if we don't give it, they're going to cover them in gasoline and set them all on fire." He said, "So I'm going from car to car and taking up, collecting donations." And I said, "Well, how much is people how much are people giving on average? He said, about a gallon.
Woo, go Jerry. That was good.
For political jokes, one of the better ones I've heard in a while.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody that believes, trusts, thinks. If you're of the, I
No
don't want
matter
to say
which
that.
party you
It
are
doesn't matter.
on.
Right,
No
left.
one likes Congress, right?
No.
We don't like Congress.
We don't like, well, if they would do something that we send them there to do, it'd be a little different. If they would
Do their job.
pretend, even if they would just go up there and leave us all alone, it'd be okay with that, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
I had and we'll get off of this in just a second because we don't do politics here anymore, but I saw a meme the other day that I thought was very fitting.
What was it?
Back in at the Tea Party days,
Okay.
that was a 1% tax on tea.
Right.
1%. Average American pays almost somewhere around 76% of every dollar they make on taxes
And keep in
at
mind,
some level. You know, it could
the-
be a sales tax, it could be a
Right.
tax on an embedded tax on a product. 76 cents on every dollar Americans pay on taxes.
The biggest problem with the tea tax wasn't the tax.
It was the
Right.
lack of representation, which
Which-
Washington, D.C. still doesn't have.
I started to say that there's a group of people in this country that still to this day do not have it, and they proudly tell everyone that will listen. In fact, they put it on their license plates.
I'll never
It is
forget
the
that.
motto:
Yeah.
taxation without representation,
Yeah.
and they have it. And it's not fair.
I understand why. Here's my thought on that. And I thought a long time, well, that's stupid. You know, maybe we should put some of those folks in, you know, give them representation. But I think because of the way Washington works, because of what it's supposed to, and I'm using air quotes, represent, I think it would be better served to go the other way, to remove all their taxes, period. Already in Washington,
I think you have to do one or the other.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
cannot leave it like it is.
Right.
It's just
And,
grossly
and
wrong.
and in this particular case, I feel like if you were to put people into power there or give them representation, that could be a, I don't know how to use my words here, but I think that could lead to a lot of corruption and a lot of power, a big power boom. Huh?
How would it be different than
Because
every other
of
state?
proximity to everything.
Really?
And that's my thought. I could be wrong.
I mean,
I really believe.
when you compare that to Virginia and Maryland, it's hard to explain how that would be true and applicable for Washington, D.C., and not at all true and not at all applicable for Virginia or Maryland.
Also, the citizens of D.C., this is another reason, and I'm just going to be blunt here, but the citizens of D.C. did reelect their mayor who got caught smoking crack in a hotel room. So I'm not really trustworthy of their decision making. So let's just not tax them. How about that?
Yeah. To me, either one. I think it's only fair. I think it's only a matter of time, to be honest with you, before some court system says that it's not constitutional. And how could it be?
Right.
Well, show me a law in our Constitution that says we're going to take this group of people and give them no representation.
Right.
Obviously, there's no intent of Congress in the very beginning to do that. It's not mentioned anywhere. But yeah, you're right. We don't cover politics.
Thank
anymore,
goodness.
So let's get off that.
Woo! What we do cover is lost cities and lost civilizations.
That we do.
And one of those that we're going to talk about tonight. Now, you didn't find this topic very exciting, did you?
Not really. I think the evidence is overwhelming. The question, let's go back and tell them what we're talking about.
Sure,
Let's
sure.
not confuse them anymore. We're going to be talking about the lost city of Atlantis. Is it
Yep.
myth or reality? Everyone's heard of it, right? Atlantis, the lost city, the city that sunk into the sea. I've been to the Atlantis resort in Bahamas. Beautiful resort. I highly recommend it if you ever get a chance. But yeah, many books have been written about it. Many movies have been made about it. you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that said, "I've not heard of Atlantis." I would think the vast majority of people probably don't know a lot about it. They probably don't know where the idea first came from. Uh, they just know it to be a very intriguing subject, and it is. No matter what, it absolutely is. But with your comment that I found it to be not as exciting as you, I thought there was a lot of question about is it myth or is it reality. Most of the research that I did pointed me in one direction, which certainly took away some of uh, the mysteriousness of it. But that's neither here nor there. So you found it to be very exciting. Why is that?
Well, I've kind of, I like to get into it a little bit. So as of the last couple of years, I have started thinking more and more and listening to one of the guys that is very big on this is a guy called Graham Hancock. And Graham Hancock is a very likable British guy. Um, Seems to know his stuff a lot. He's been on a lot of shows. He's been on Rogan. He's been on um, Ancient Aliens. He's been on all the things. Wrote several books. But he believes that there were, in fact, if not one, but more than one, huge civilizations that were inspired, that lived before what was called the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas being a small ice age that was the result of what most people think a comet strike. Growing there, the argument to that was, well, we don't have any crater to prove that. Very recently, within the last couple of years, we found a crater in Greenland that was buried in the ice that's almost 2 miles long. And then the ice that's under the crater is just decimated. It's just broken. And Greenland is one of those places that never, what's the word I'm looking for? Lost its ice sheet ever. Even in the, when most of North America was covered and all that, and then the ice receded, Greenland is, oddly enough, Iceland is very green and Greenland is very ice ridden
compared to each other.
Yes. Yeah. Um, so we found that, and that dates to about the time of the Younger Dryas, which is sometime between 11,800 and 12,800 BC, a long time ago. But that's anyway. Graham Hancock believes that Atlantis was real and probably wasn't the only place that was around before the ultimate destruction that was the Younger Dryas. So, the argument is, where's the proof? We have pottery from the ancient Egyptians. We have, the pyramids. We have whatever. Again, the pyramids, some people are beginning to believe wasn't actually built by the Egyptians, but built by a civilization prior
I don't think
to.
it's fair to say they're beginning to believe. I would say since they were built, people have looked at it and said there's no way mankind can do that.
Yeah.
With the tools that were available at that time, we still can't explain how that was done. We can't even get close to how that was done.
Isn't that crazy?
That'd be very crazy. Yeah, with all the, we've learned so much. Think about in the last 100 years, just take one profession, medical. If we take the medical profession, what have we learned in the last 100 years?
Right.
The majority of what we know about medicine, we've learned in the last 100 years. Go back thousands of years to the pyramids, we still don't know how, with the tools that they had in that day and time, we have no clue how they did it.
Oh, Jerry, if you listen to the experts, the Egyptologists, they did that with a plumb bob.
Yeah, sure.
And thousands of people pushing these big rocks on sticks.
Yeah.
Now,
No.
one of the things that they have thought about, and this makes even less sense than rolling them on sticks, is that they had channels, they had built channels, they flooded the channels with the water from the Nile. Then they used those same sticks and floated the rock down, but still had to push them physically up as they built the upward of the pyramid. I just can't see it. I've seen pictures of what they think it looks like. No, I'm not buying it. You can keep whatever it is you're selling. I'm not
The
buying it.
scientists don't buy it. The scientists, I've never seen them be able to convince scientists that this is possible.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but you're right. The problem with a lot of this, whether it's Atlantis or the, and we talked about it before, the possibility of very intelligent civilizations that we have lost along the way. We talked about it during the pyramids. We talked about it on several different episodes. But the problem is that people always say, "Where's your evidence?" And at least with the pyramids, you can say, "Well, you explain to me how they did this."
Right?
With Atlantis, it's a little harder to come up with.
Graham Hancock is one of the folks that also has advocated for the Sphinx being way older than what Egyptologists think it is because of the weathering, the water weathering, and that kind of stuff. So, if you've never Googled him or never saw him, by all means, check him out. He's really, really a good, smart fellow. I really like him.
So he's a big believer in Atlantis.
He believes that it's as much a likelihood that it existed but was destroyed in the Younger Dryas as any. And here's the thing, and here's the thing that has been
When does he think that it existed?
long before, a long time ago, prior to Plato.
way before,
Yeah.
from what I understood you to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Okay.
But see, that's the whole thing. Plato, I always feel like I'm saying Play-Doh, but it's Plato. So Plato used such, one of the reasons that this thing has grown and it continues to stick around is which he described things that as something that you would see. Now, he's an artist, he's a writer, and
One of the
that's
great
his job.
philosophers
Yeah.
of all time.
Right. So that's kind of his job, to be able to describe something and put it to paper better than
Make it
most.
believable.
Right. But even in that, with some of the things that the details that he put out, that is one of the reasons that it's so believable, and that's why people think it's gone. Was here, not gone. Everybody knows it's gone, but you know what I'm saying.
I do. And that's not exactly new.
Right.
He was the protege of Socrates.
So
there was
great.
Socrates, and then Plato, and his the next step down was Aristotle. Aristotle did not believe this at all. Aristotle did not think that it was real. He joked for many years about it. But I'm trying to find it here in my notes somewhere. There was another student, Crantor, another one of Plato's students, who was said to have believed the story absolutely and even wrote about it. So even in that day and time, it was disputed of whether or not it was real. So
Isn't that crazy?
that's nothing new. And it's not like we're going to be able to, shall I go ahead and give them the in the suspense? We are not going to be able tonight to 100% prove that it existed or did not. We can give
What?
our opinions, but yeah, we're not going to be able to answer the age-old question with little reason. If Aristotle and Crantor, two of Plato's students for many years, Aristotle was Plato's student for the last 20 years of Plato's life, and he didn't believe it, but yet many people at that time did, and still to this day, many people believe it.
Crazy.
So why don't you tell us why people should believe that the lost city of Atlantis actually existed?
Well, I'm not sure that the lost city of Atlantis existed per se, as it said, but we will talk about a few structures and a few places that lead people to believe that it could have. First of all, Plato thinks that it existed somewhere around 10,000 BC, somewhere in that ballpark, I think. No, I got my notes backwards. Sorry. That's when the Greenland crater came over and the youngest dryad started somewhere 11,000 to 12,000 BC.
You're not too far off from what Plato believed as well.
Okay, good.
9,600 years for him, so I wasn't going to correct you.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
And that just leads people to believe that these things could have been coexist. Now, if you listen and you read what Plato said was the how would you say Atlanteans? Is that
The
how you would
people
say
of
it?
Atlantis.
The
Yes,
people of Atlantis. Yeah. They were superhumans. They were not as we are today. They were big.
He described them as half human, half god,
Yeah.
demigods.
So a couple of the places that we want to talk about where entire civilizations have sunk under the water. It's happened a couple of different
It has.
times.
Absolutely.
In fact, scientists have already found an entire continent that used to connect Africa and Australia that has sunk into the Indian Ocean, which is kind of neat. I mean, an entire continent, for folks that say that can't happen, there's proof that it, in fact, can happen. Um, and if you go all the way down to Cuba, that's not the picture I wanted to go. So I even pulled up a couple of articles about the Younger Dryas, and some scientists who are hardcore say that didn't even exist, that didn't happen. And I'm not sure why, because more and more evidence is showing that, yeah, we did have a pretty big, substantial, and it actually helped the humans take over from the Neanderthals. But long story short, oh gosh, there's so much here. We're talking about, this is the fun part, because we're talking about a time that was so long ago that we might as well be talking about the same amount of time in the future. We really don't know anything about anything. We're all speculating here. But anyway, one of the biggest, and this is one for me, Jerry, that when you look at the Eye of the Sahara, otherwise known as the rickshaw, and I'm probably the Reichert or the rickshaw structure, Rishat structure in the Sahara Desert. Have you looked that up?
I did not.
You should look that up. And it is almost identical to the way in its build and its structure, if you will, to what Plato said the city of Atlantis looked like. Go ahead and pull that up and look at it. Basically, the city of Atlantis, according to Plato, was a city that was in water, and it was set on many different rings going in with water in between each of the rings, and massive, beautiful bridges that connected the rings. The rickshaw, if you do a Google view or a Google Earth view of that structure in the Sahara Desert, bears strong resemblance to what the city of Atlantis supposedly looked like to Plato. Now, if you just put Atlantis into Google, roughly 120 million different things will pop up. So it's kind of hard to get through it. A lot of it is about the place you went to down in the Bahamas.
The resort.
Yeah. So here's what Plato said, and I'll quote just a little bit about it. Poseidon carved the mountain where his love dwelt into a palace and enclosed it with 3 circular moats of increasing width, varying from 1 to 3 stadia, and separated by rings of land proportional in size. The Atlanteans then built bridges northward from the mountain, making sure the route to the rest of the island. They dug a great canal to the sea, and alongside the bridges carved tunnels into the rings of rock so that ships could pass through the city and around the mountain. They carved docks from the rock walls of the moats. Every passage into the city was guarded by gates and towers, and a wall surrounded each ring of the city. The walls were constructed of red, white, and black rock quarried from the moats, and were covered in brass, tin, or other precious metals, respectively. So basically, the city of Atlantis was a big circle with a lot of little circles inside of it, and each ring of that was in effect guarded by its own walls and its own protections. Pretty cool stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah. Did you find the rickshaw?
Yeah.
Yeah. See what I mean? How that?
I'm surprised I found it because I had no idea how to spell it, but
Yeah, you just
R-I-C-H-A-T.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, while there is a consensus among, there is a consensus about gosh, why can I not say that word tonight? Classicist regarding the story's my Lord, I'm struggling tonight. Fictional character. There is much debate as to what could have served as its inspiration. Plato is very much known to have freely borrowed some of his allegories and metaphors from older traditions, which led a number of scholars to speculate Atlantis was actually inspired by the Egyptian records of the Thera eruption, the Sea People's invasion, or even the Trojan War. Whew, that was a hard statement to get through.
Big words.
Huh?
Big words.
Big words. Yeah, for good old Kentucky boy, that's a lot. Others, however, insisted Plato created the entire account as a work of fiction, drawing loose inspiration from other contemporary events such as the failed Athenian invasion of Sicily in 415 to 413 BC, or the destruction of Helike in 373 BC. You know,
the Helike actually was a city that an earthquake put underwater. So, back to your original point, this is possible.
Yeah.
There's nothing that he said, about this place that once existed that now no longer does, that is an impossibility.
Right? It's just there's a lot here that blows me away. You know what I mean? There's just a lot to it. I lost my place here. Anyway, I would encourage anyone to look at the Eye of the Sierra and then compare it to what we just described Atlantis to look at. Now, obviously, in today's world, the Sahara is a desert. There aren't rings of water around it. There's a river that flows close to it. But guess what? In 15,000 years, the world changes.
That it does. That it does. Wouldn't find anyone to dispute you on that.
But it is next to a mountain. Just want to throw it out there. It's kind of crazy.
It is.
So what do you think? Tell us a little bit about Plato there, Jerry.
Well, the reason I'm going to talk quite a bit about Plato is pretty simple. I agree with everything that you said, basically, except the fact that whether or not it existed. Plato described Atlantis and the Athenians. How do you say the word? Atlanteans as a half godlike people. He described them as half human, half god. They were a very technologically advanced society. They had huge naval superiority. They were known for not just their technological expertise, but they were known, according to his description, it was an ideal society in many respects. The problem that I have is, and again, like you said, it existed roughly 9,000 years previous. So, in all that time period, why were they never mentioned other than Plato? Why did the entire world forget about the most advanced civilization on the face of the earth? But suddenly, 9,000 years later, one dude has tons of information and writes all these accounts of it. No one else, not once in recorded history before Plato was Atlantis mentioned.
Maybe
Not
they were
once.
scared to mention it.
No one, the world had forgotten about it. If it truly existed, the world had forgotten for thousands of years that it existed, and suddenly one guy has all the information. Now, what most people believe happened is when Plato wrote about Atlantis, it was in two works. It was Timaeus and Critias. And both of these stories, excuse me, were written not as a book, but as a dialogue. They were written as a conversation that was taking place between Socrates, his his mentor, and Timaeus and Critias, two imaginary fictional people. So when he wrote about this place, he was trying to describe, and he made that pretty clear. He was trying to describe a perfect, ideal society, and Atlantis is that. It is this great civilization. These people that were very intelligent, but somewhere along the way, they became uh, greedy. They became consumed with power. And according to the story, that's what brought about their downfall. So, in the story that he tells, that is briefly introduced in Timaeus and predominantly covered in Critias, it is about how that those things can be the downfall of a society.
Right.
And most people thought that what he was doing was writing this as a warning to Greece, one of the first earliest democracies that the world had ever known. Uh, but he was writing it as a warning that if you don't get your greed in check, if you don't get the powerful ambitions of some of the politicians in check, God only knows to this day we still haven't solved that problem at all. But his point, most philosophers believe that it was his warning, his way of trying to warn society that you cannot continue to let this go unchecked. Keep in mind that again, he was the student of Socrates. Do you remember how Socrates died? Why he died?
No.
He was tried and executed for perverting the youth. Do you know what he did to pervert the youth?
Gave them racy cups.
He taught them what was happening with the government. He taught them the problems of the greedy, rich, powerful people. And he was tried, convicted, and executed.
Sounds like what's coming. Never mind. We're not political
I
anymore.
agree. But can you not see where that Plato would attempt to tell the same story, but
Using
in a way
metaphors.
that wasn't going to get him executed?
Yeah, no, I get that.
And that's
That
what
makes
most
sense.
philosophers think that he did. That he was simply trying to send a warning to the people of that time that, look, we've got a great idea. We've got a great concept here. This democracy thing is pretty awesome. But it can be corrupted. It can be corrupted by greed. It can be corrupted by these people who are power hungry. And that's what most of the people, including Aristotle, at the time thought. But if I had to go back and give you one reason why I do not believe, I can give you two reasons of why I do not believe that it was an actual place that existed.
Okay.
Number one, you mentioned about the continent that we found, and to the best of our knowledge, we have no idea if that continent was even populated. We have no evidence of cities. We have no evidence of people on it. Not that we would have. I'm not saying it was or wasn't. We just don't have any evidence, one way or the other. The Titanic. We were able to find that ship. Huge ship. It wasn't a little tiny rowboat. It was a huge ship. We can find the ship. We're talking about a great continent. Do you remember how Plato described it? What did he say the size was? He said it was larger than Asia Minor. Asia Minor is modern day Turkey and the area surrounding it. He said it was larger than Asia Minor and Libya United. At the time, Northern Africa was called Libya United. He said it was larger than those two put together. That would be a huge continent.
Can you imagine?
He told us where it was. It was to the west of the Straits of Gibraltar, which is leading into the Mediterranean Sea. So we had a rough idea where it was to look. And we weren't looking for a small ship. We were looking for a huge continent. And it's never been found. So number one, I think that we would have found it if it did exist. Number two, I think history would not have forgotten one of the great races of all time. If these people were the half god, half human civilization that was so far advanced to the rest of the world, and they suddenly ceased to exist, according to Plato, they had many people in many
throughout the
countries
yeah.
throughout the world. If their homeland suddenly disappeared, I think those people would be raising the alarm.
Yeah.
I think they would be writing about it. But we have not found of one instance that Atlantis was ever mentioned prior to Plato. So put those two together, I think I would have to agree with most philosophers that it was simply Plato's way of trying to get some revenge for Socrates and to carry on the message that Socrates was trying to spread that ended up getting him killed.
So what about the discovery that was made in 2001 off the coast of Cuba?
Well, that obviously had to be Atlantis because that's exactly where Plato said it was going to be. Tell us about it.
Well, in the initial discovery, and I'm reading this out of one of your favorite, it's called The Archaeologist, Civilizations of the World. Um, Basically, the team of explorers have found what looks to be ruins just off the coast of Cuba. Um, these ruins, and let me just read from the actual article for just a second. I don't want to take too much out of it because it gets a little wordy, but um, in July 2001, they went back to the location with a senior researcher and geologist, Manuel. Oh, Manuel Ilturde. I'm probably butchering his name. I apologize. Of the Natural History Museum of Cuba. This time they used a remotely operated vehicle to look at and record the structures. Large, roughly 8 by 10 chunks of stone that resembled hewn granite were visible in the photographs. Some of the blocks appeared to be placed on one another on purpose, while others appeared to be left alone. Zelitsky stated that it appeared that in the photograph depicted ruins of a sunken metropolis, though he was hesitated to make any judgments without more information. That new information came. Sorry about that. According to an estimate, it would have taken somewhere around 50,000 years for such structures to be submerged to the depth they were allegedly discovered. Now, by the structures, we're talking about LIDAR indicated pyramids, round domes, um, many different types of uh, structures as far as um, basically a city. You know, it had many different parts of the city, homes, uh, temples, marketplaces, all of them made out of this granite, which would indicate why it stayed underwater and intact for so long. According to the estimate, it would take 50,000 years for such structures to submerge to the depth they were allegedly discovered. Ilterud continued, as with any cultures that we're aware of 50,000 years ago, there was not the architectural capacity to build such elaborate buildings. A Florida State university expert in underwater archaeology commented, if they are correct, that would be really cool, but it would be very advanced compared to what we would have seen in the New World at that time. The buildings are both out of place and out of time. They're not supposed to be there, but they're there. Now, back to Graham Hancock just for a second. The general theory for that they still teach in schools today is that the Americas were populated originally through the Bering Strait. Right. Many scientists are coming to full circle on that and saying there's no way possible. In fact, some aspects in the Amazon jungles of South America saying that they were populated in cities the size of London, multiple cities, during the same time London was beginning. And several not explorers detailed this in their notes. And I didn't write all those down. That's a different topic for a different day. But for people to say that we know, let me put it a different way. Okay. we know more about the moon than we do what's at the bottom of our oceans. Because at the bottom of the oceans, the pressure and the crush depth, and it's really tough to explore what's at the bottom of the ocean. We're just not meant to be that deep in the water. So I don't disagree with you that this is probably a fetch, and Plato probably is rolling. He's probably in heaven right now, but they're still talking about Atlantis. I got them stupid humans. But
Yeah, maybe.
there is a lot of opportunity here for what could be, I suppose.
Well, you started off by saying, "What do I think about?" Then you described this. What's this archaeological site known as?
I don't know. I've already X'd out of it. I was
Anyway,
going to give you the date.
my answer to that would be this: you found a city.
Yeah.
Where's the rest of the continent?
No, that's true.
This is a continent. This is a continent larger than Asia Minor and Northern Africa combined. So you found a city. If it has any connection to this, where's the rest of the continent? And if you're talking about in the Bahamas area, there's not room for the rest of the continent to be there.
Right, unless it is part of the Bahamas.
Unless
if it's part of those
Part of
islands.
the same part didn't.
Yeah.
But also that would be, when you look at when Plato was talking about the interactions that the people of Atlantis had with Greece, with Turkey, with Northern Africa, there's no way, we did not at that point, unless this civilization was so advanced they had spacecraft, we had nothing that would have enabled them to transverse that distance from Bahamas.
Now,
Europe.
we say that, but this was around the same time that Easter Island was created. In Easter Island, they say those fellas got there to Easter Island
We
on
have no
freaking canoes.
We have no idea how they got there. So many questions about Easter Island.
Right, which is another show for a different day.
It is. But again, I want to go back to something. You mentioned jokingly that Plato is probably in heaven going, oh, they're still, making fun of the people that are still talking about it.
Including
He
us.
obviously did not want to get rid of the uncertainty. Two of his own students, two of his brightest, most well-known students, Aristotle believed for the rest of his life that it was entirely made up. He had an ongoing joke that he told about how Plato could conjure great nations and describe them in great detail and then destroy them in an instant. That was a joke that he told. But other students of Plato's believed wholeheartedly that Atlantis was real. So obviously for us to try to determine when his own students were at odds, that's just not going to happen.
Well, Jerry, Atlantis. Do you think it deserves more or less news coverage? Is it newsworthy?
Anytime that we have a question this large, whether physically the size of a continent or just philosophically, if you believe that that's what Plato was doing, was trying to answer some philosophical questions that has been disputed for this many thousands of years, it absolutely needs more coverage.
Absolutely, I agree. 2 thumbs up from us here at Newsworthy.
That was an interesting episode, but our journey isn't over yet. If you stay tuned, we have an exciting bonus story coming up after this commercial break.
Hi, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. When it comes to buying a home, the process can be overwhelming and confusing. With so many options, it can be hard to know where to start. That's why it's important to work with a certified mortgage loan originator. I have the knowledge and expertise to guide you through the process and find the best mortgage option for you. I will work with you every step of the way to ensure that you are getting the best deal possible. So if you're looking to purchase or refinance, please reach out to me at 502-680-0953. So don't take on the stress of buying a home alone. Work with me and I will make your dream a reality. Trust the professionals and make your home buying experience a positive one. MLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, MLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is equal housing opportunity.
If you would like to share suggestions for future episodes, an intriguing ghost story, or simply tell us how much you love or hate us, please get in touch with us. You can reach us via email at newsworthywithstephencherry@gmail.com or send us a text at area code 540-709-1318.
And now, back to the story.
Jerry, we go from a place tonight that we have no idea if it existed to a place that we absolutely know existed, and you can go visit it today.
Nice.
The Valley of the Mills in Sorrento, Italy. At some point during the 13th century, the people of Sorrento found an ingenious use for a deep ravine cutting through the area. Flour mills were built at the bottom of the chasm where a steady stream of flowing water could help power the grounding mechanisms. Sawmills would later follow, and the narrow canyon would buzz with the sound of commerce all the way from then all the way to the 1940s when the last mill was finally closed. Since then, the abandoned mills seemingly have sprouted their own ecosystem. Ferns, holly oak, and ash trees have gradually enveloped the entirety of the stone buildings. The Valley of the Mills, in all its overgrown glory, became a draw for artists and photographers. In 2019, a controversial project began to clear out all the vegetation and restore the mills that we see in our images. Those who simply love the mysterious beauty of the untouched ruin are working very, very hard to get that cleanup all halted. Woo, that was tough to get through. But so far, they've stopped all of that, and they are reletting the vegetation take over. And if you go to Bing or any of these sites to see this, it's a beautiful sight, and you can understand why they didn't want it to be all cleaned out. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.